All right, so get ready, because today we're diving deep in some pretty intense musical territory.
Sounds good.
We're talking about the Doza Crew and their 40th album,
40th.
DZCRW.
Yeah. Deeza's CRW, a career that spans decades, and we're going to break it all down using some snippets from their YouTube channel and a deep dive article we found about this album. But
Okay. What I find really interesting is this newly discovered track,
yeah,
weshalbwarum,
absolutely.
featuring Kairam,
Right.
who we haven't heard from since the crew's 5th album.
That's right. It's been 35 albums since we last heard Kairam collaborate with the Doza Crew. So their return is definitely one of the most intriguing parts of this album.
All right, so let's just jump right into this weshalbwarum track.
Okay.
I gotta say, this track is wild.
Yeah.
It's like a descent into chaos and madness,
Huh?
but musically brilliant.
Musically, yeah, I agree.
It reminds me of their older track, Where We Wows, but with a much darker, more intense feel.
I agree with you. You can definitely hear those echoes of where we was in there, especially the use of those disorienting sound effects and the lyrical themes of confusion and searching.
Right.
But weshalbwarum takes it to a whole other level.
Totally.
The back and forth between those aggressive bursts and those almost eerie moments of calm, it creates this feeling of being trapped, searching for an escape that never comes.
Like they're lost in a maze, musically and lyrically.
Absolutely.
And speaking of lyrics, this line really stuck with me. Spieglein, Spieglein an der Wand, zeig mir mein eigenes Gesicht. Doch je tiefer ich schaue, desto weniger Licht.
Whoa.
It's like looking into a mirror and seeing nothing but darkness staring back at you.
Yeah, that's a powerful image, and it really speaks to those broader themes of self-discovery and illusion that the Doza Crew often explores.
Yeah.
What's interesting here is how Kairam's verses add another layer to that, like they're
Right.
battling their own demons as well,
Yeah.
mirroring the song's overall feeling of despair.
It's almost like we're hearing a reflection of their journey during this long absence, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, 35 albums, that's a long time to be away.
Yeah.
What do you think they were up to during all those years?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the sources don't really offer any specific details about Kairam's whereabouts or their personal journey.
Right.
But it's safe to say that their experiences have definitely shaped this raw emotion that we hear in weshalbwarum.
Okay.
As for the return to the Doza Crew,
Yeah.
perhaps it was a matter of coming full circle, seeking that familiarity and that artistic connection after a period of, personal exploration.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And speaking of evolution, can we talk about the Doza Crew's sound on this album?
Absolutely.
It feels like they've really embraced electronic and techno elements more so than ever before.
You're right, they have. And they've managed to blend those elements with their signature rap style seamlessly, which is a testament to their ability to evolve and adapt while staying true to their core sound. Like, take, for example, the track Micro Massacre.
Okay.
It's basically a reimagining of their classic Zelkern diss track, but with a fresh, almost futuristic spin on it.
You know, Micro Massacre really stood out to me too.
Yeah.
It's like they're revisiting familiar territory,
Yeah.
but with a new perspective, a sharper edge.
Right.
What I find really fascinating is how they use this battle rap format, this time pitting a virus against a bacterium.
Right.
It's a metaphor, right?
Yeah.
But what do you think they're really commenting on?
I think that's the beauty of the Doza Crew. They layer their tracks with meaning, which always leaves room for interpretation.
Oh, for sure.
Micro Massacre could be interpreted as a commentary on societal conflict, the struggle between those opposing forces.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's about those internal battles that we face within ourselves.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
It's like they're giving us all these puzzle pieces and inviting us to put them together in our own way.
Exactly.
Speaking of collaborators, you mentioned other artists featured on the album.
Yes.
Fill us in.
Well, one collaboration that really caught my attention was Gillet and GRD on the track is So.
Okay.
Now, these two artists are known for their experimental approach to sound.
Okay. I'm already intrigued. What's is So all about?
It's difficult to categorize.
Yeah.
It's not your typical rap track.
Yeah.
It's more atmospheric, almost ambient in places.
Right.
They utilize spoken word elements, and the rhythm is very hypnotic and pulsating.
Interesting.
It's a very different energy from the intensity of weshalbwarum.
So it sounds like DZCRW is full of surprises and unexpected turns.
Absolutely.
So we've talked about weshalbwarum, the Doza Crew's evolution, and their collaborators on this album.
Yeah.
What's the overall takeaway for you? What's the big picture here?
I think DZCRW marks a significant point in the Doza Crew's journey.
Yeah.
It's an album about transformation, about confronting your demons and finding your own path, even when it leads through darkness and chaos.
Right.
And the return of Kyrem after all these years just adds another layer of intrigue and complexity to this whole narrative.
That's a great point, and it brings us back to the question of what they've been through during their absence and how those experiences have shaped them as artists.
Right.
We may never have all the answers, but the music definitely gives us some clues.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes the Doza Cruise so compelling.
Yeah.
They don't offer easy answers.
Right.
They challenge us to dig deeper, to question, and to find our own meaning within all that chaos.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the return of Kyrem, the intensity of weshalbwarum, and the unexpected turns of this album.
Absolutely. We've touched upon their evolution as artists and explored those collaborations, especially the intriguing track is so...
Yeah, but we've only just scratched the surface.
Totally.
There's so much more to unpack and so much more to discover.
And that's what we'll do next time. We'll delve even deeper into the layers of DZCRW, explore the album's overall themes, and try to understand the impact of Kyrem's return on the Doza Cruise sound and message.
But for now, we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on weshalbwarum? What stood out to you, and what questions are you left with? Join the conversation, because the Doza Cruise music is meant to be shared, debated, and dissected.
Until next time, keep listening, keep thinking, and keep exploring. Welcome back to our deep dive into DZCRW, the Doza Cruise 40th album.
It's been a wild ride so far.
Right.
DZCRW really does feel like a turning point for the Doza crew.
Yeah.
There's this sense of urgency, of pushing boundaries, that just permeates the entire album.
I agree, and I think that sense of urgency is definitely amplified by those electronic and techno influences we hear throughout the album.
Right.
You know, those elements aren't exactly new to the Doza Cruise sound, but they're definitely more prominent on DZCRW.
You mentioned earlier that the Doza crew are known for layering their music with meaning.
Yeah.
What else can you tell us about the lyrical content of the album? Are there any recurring themes or motifs that stand out to you?
Well, aside from the themes of transformation and confronting your inner demons that we discussed earlier in relation to weshalbwarum, there's also a really strong undercurrent of social commentary on DZCRW.
Oh, really? Can you give us an example? What kind of social commentary are we talking about here?
We'll take the track System Stirs, for instance.
Okay.
It's like a scathing critique of power structures and societal control mechanisms.
Wow.
The lyrics are super dense, full of wordplay and double meanings.
Right.
But that overall message is very clear.
Okay.
Question authority, resist conformity, and fight for your individual freedom.
Wow, so it sounds like DZCRW is a pretty politically charged album.
It is, but the Doza crew has never really shied away from addressing political and social issues in their music.
That's true.
Remember Zelkern diss?
Oh, yeah.
That track was a direct attack on political corruption back in the day.
Right.
What's interesting is how they've managed to evolve their approach to these themes over time.
I'm curious, how would you say their approach has evolved?
Well, in their earlier work, those political messages were a lot more overt, more in your face.
Right.
But on DZCRW, it feels like they're using more subtle, metaphorical language to convey those ideas.
So it's like they're inviting us to read between the lines.
Exactly.
To decode the message.
They're not spoon-feeding us their opinions.
Right.
They're encouraging us to think critically and to draw our own conclusions.
Okay.
And that's what makes their music so thought-provoking and enduring.
I want to circle back to weshalbwarum for a moment.
Okay.
That track seems to be generating a lot of buzz online.
Yeah.
People are really trying to figure out the meaning behind it.
Right.
Especially the significance of Kyrem's return.
Yeah, it's understandable. weshalbwarum is a very powerful and enigmatic track.
For sure.
And Kyrem's presence just adds this whole other layer of mystery and intrigue to it.
Right.
You know, some fans have speculated that the song is about Kyrem's own personal struggles during their time away from the Doza crew.
That's an interesting theory. Is there anything in the lyrics that supports that interpretation?
There are definitely lines in there that could be interpreted as alluding to personal struggles, feelings of isolation, and the search for meaning. But ultimately, it's open to interpretation. You know, the Doza crew are known for their cryptic lyrics, and weshalbwarum is no exception.
I think that's part of what makes their music so engaging.
Yeah.
It sparks these conversations and debates and encourages listeners to dig deeper and come up with their own interpretations.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that we should always keep in mind when we approach their work.
For sure.
There's no single right way to interpret their music.
Okay, so we talked about the political and social undercurrents of DZCRW, the evolution of the Doza crew's lyrical approach, and the multiple interpretations of weshalbwarum. Now, I want to touch on something else that stood out to me, the sheer sonic diversity of this album.
Right. DZCRW is incredibly diverse sonically.
It really is.
It's not just a collection of tracks. It's like a journey through all these different moods and soundscapes.
Yeah.
You have the raw intensity of weshalbwarum,
Yeah.
the social commentary of System Stirs, the ethereal beauty of Is So, and everything in between.
It's like they're pushing the boundaries of what a Doza Crew album can be.
Totally.
And they're pulling it off brilliantly.
I completely agree. It's a testament to their artistic growth and their willingness to experiment without sacrificing their core identity.
Speaking of experimentation, I want to talk more about their collaboration with Gillet and GRD on Is So.
Okay.
What can you tell us about these artists and their contribution to the album?
Well, both Gillet and GRD are known for their experimental approach to electronic music.
Okay.
They often incorporate ambient sounds, spoken word elements, and unconventional rhythms into their work.
Right.
So it's not surprising that their collaboration with the Doza Crew on Is So resulted in a track that's so unique and unexpected.
Yeah, what's fascinating to me is how they've managed to blend their distinct styles with the Doza Crew's sound so seamlessly.
Right, it's great.
It's like they've created this hybrid sound that's both familiar and completely new.
Totally. It's a perfect example of how the Doza Crew has always embraced collaboration and pushed the boundaries of their own musicality.
Yeah.
They're not afraid to step outside their comfort zone and work with artists who bring something totally different to the table.
You know, it's funny. We've been talking for a while now, and we've barely scratched the surface of everything DZCRW has to offer.
I know, right? That's the thing about the Doza Crew's work. It's multi-layered, complex, and always ripe for further exploration.
And that's what makes this deep dive so rewarding.
Absolutely.
Each time we revisit a track, we discover new nuances, new layers of meaning.
It's a testament to the Doza Crew's artistry and their ability to create music that's both intellectually stimulating and emotionally resonant.
Well said. Okay, so before we wrap up this part of the deep dive, I want to pose a question to you and to our listeners.
Okay, go ahead.
What do you think is the most significant aspect of DZCRW? Is it the return of Kyrem, the evolution of the Doza Crew's sound, the political and social commentary that's woven throughout the album, or is it something else entirely?
That's a great question, and I think it's fun that each listener will have to answer for themselves.
Exactly. So take some time to reflect on what we've discussed, revisit the tracks, and let us know your thoughts.
We'll be back soon to continue our deep dive into DZCRW and explore even more layers of meaning and musical brilliance.
And we are back for the final part of our deep dive into DZCRW.
It's been quite the journey.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground from the sonic chaos of weshalbwarum to the political bite of System Stirs.
Yeah.
And we've explored the Doza Crew's evolution, their willingness to experiment, and their real knack for weaving those complex layers of meaning into their music.
Absolutely.
But as with any deep talk, the more we explore, the more questions seem to surface.
Right. Well, that's the beauty of the Doza Crew's work. It's meant to provoke thought, to spark debate, to challenge our perspectives.
One question that keeps coming back to me is, what does DZCRW tell us about the future of the Doza Crew?
That is a fascinating question. I think this album signals a shift, a willingness to push even further beyond the boundaries they've already established over the past 40 albums.
You think the electronic and techno influences will continue to play a prominent role in their sound?
It's really hard to say for certain, but based on what we hear on DZCRW, I wouldn't be surprised if they continue to explore those sonic territories.
And what about Kyrem?
Right.
Will they remain a constant collaborator?
That's another big question mark. Their return after such a long absence was definitely a huge surprise.
Yeah.
And the impact of their contribution to DZCRW is undeniable. But whether this marks a permanent reunion or a one-time thing, still remains to be seen.
I guess only time will tell, but one thing's for sure, the Doza Crew is showing no signs of slowing down.
Absolutely not 40 albums in, and they're still innovating, still pushing the boundaries, still challenging us to think differently.
You know, it's really inspiring to witness a band with such a long and storied career continue to evolve and take risks.
I know, it's a good reminder that creative growth has no limits, no expiration date.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into DZCRW, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought-provoking question.
Okay, go for it.
If DZCRW represents the culmination of their journey so far, could it also be the start of a new chapter for the Doza Crew?
That's an excellent question, and I think the answer lies somewhere in between those two ideas,
Yeah.
culmination and new beginnings.
It's like they're building upon their legacy while simultaneously forging a new path forward.
Precisely, and that's what makes their music so endlessly fascinating.
Right.
They manage to honor their past while constantly looking ahead, embracing the unknown.
And who knows what sonic landscapes they'll explore next, what lyrical depths they'll plumb, or what collaborations they'll surprise us with.
That's the exciting part.
Yeah. We get to be along for the ride, to witness their evolution, to decode their messages, and to engage in the ongoing conversation that their music sparks.
So, to all our listeners out there, keep your ears open, your minds curious, and never stop exploring the depths of the Doza Cruz sonic universe.
Until next time, happy listening.